Did she teach you things?
Yes.
What did she teach you?
She teach me how to
Oh,
she teach me how to sew. She teach me how to cook. She teach me how to do everything because she raised me. I was raised by my grandma, not by my mom. So everything I know pretty much was taught by my grandma.
To hear Wings programs again, email wings@wings.org. You can also visit our website, wingsradio.org/WordPress, and check out our daily news feed at facebook.com/wingsradio. Wings thanks your local community radio stations, the International Association of Women in Radio and Television, Carolyn Byerly, Sheila Dellis Katzman, Suzette Cullen, and Genevieve Vaughn, whose fortnightly series of salons can be viewed at maternalgifteconomymovement.org.
Don't you love that show? My gosh, that's one of my favorite shows. Women's International News Gathering Service. They find stuff that we should be hopeful for, that we are hopeful for. Because here at the Work FM, we're looking for ways to make ourselves fit better, and that segues wonderfully to our next show, which is finding out. So we're finding our fit with each other, with ourselves. And if we don't do it, well, we're going to run into things like this orange storm we've had the last couple of years. Oh my gosh, what a waste of time. Anyway, not to get into politics. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to diverge, but we could do better. You know, we could do better. We're taking a lot of shortcuts, and they don't go anywhere. Free lunches do not exist. We have to work, we have to care, and we have to strive every day to find our fit. And we're going to give you another lesson right now, or I'd rather Allie will, on finding our fit. And thanks, Tiffany, for joining us on this journey.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ron. So my name is. Go ahead.
I'm going to step to the side so you can have the whole floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ron. Appreciate it. So this is Finding Our Fit, as Ron said. My name is Allie Fisher. The purpose of Finding Our Fit is to find our place in our chaotic and beautiful world. In doing so, we will enrich our world and create a brighter future for everyone and everything, especially Earth. I am a monthly guest host filling in for Dr. Susanna Calvert, who is the founder and executive director of the Foundation for Family and Community Healing. I am the convener for growth there. Our mission is also to help everyone find our fit through mental, emotional, and relationship skill, education, and resilience. You can check us out at healingedu.org. We try to make sense of our world so that we can choose to lean into that which makes us feel peaceful and grounded, which is often easier said than done. Many of us, myself included, tend to focus on the chaotic and overwhelming things in our lives, forgetting that the flip side has opportunities to find and create beauty and healing. In Finding Our Fit, we focus on the flip side of our challenges, the beautiful side, where we can learn and grow and become wiser and more resilient by adopting a healthier relationship with everybody and everything. It's important to choose both yin and yang to create balance and conditions for healing. And it's a practice that we have to choose every day. If you would like to join the conversation, you are welcome to call 804-464-1089. Again, that's 804-464-1089, or comment if you're tuning in on Facebook Live or on YouTube. Today, we're going to be talking about empowering diverse entrepreneurs, driving national success and unity. And it is based on an article that my guest here, Tiffany Joy Greene, wrote called "Entrepreneurs Often Forged in the Crucibles of Childhood Adversity and Self-Reliance Deserve Support." And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Tiffany, and then we will get this conversation started. So Tiffany Joy Greene, also known as Manic Maple, is the power source for the United States, half of Mexico, and definitely all of Canada. She's from, fueled by coffee and maple syrup. All Manic Maple does is win because she does not quit. She's got her coffee right now. For over 2 decades, Manic Maple has helped various organizations and entrepreneurs launch and grow successful businesses, nonprofit nonprofits, programs, products, and services. Danik Maple, a leader, entrepreneur, author, educator, speaker, founder, and consultant, helps organizations with strategic planning, business and management consulting, brand strategy, market planning, and communication planning. She believes that inclusive education and connections develop purpose-driven for-profit and nonprofit leaders that empower the people, organizations, and communities they serve. This belief drove her to found Empower People, which we will talk more about later. And she resides in Chesterfield, Virginia, with her husband, daughter, son, and fur baby, Yorkie. So Tiffany, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to have you.
Well, thank you, Allie. And that was a lot for you to say, and I apologize. Maybe I need to condense it.
No, I mean, it's all beautiful, true stuff. And it's good for people to have that context about who you are. So I think it's great. So we are talking about entrepreneurs and how important they are for national success and unity. And also it is loosely, the conversation is loosely based on your article, which I mentioned the title of, and I'll just do it again. So entrepreneurs often forge in the crucibles of childhood, adversity, and self-reliance deserve support, which is true. So just to get some of your, the inspiration behind the article, why did you write it?
I wrote it because throughout the course of my life, as I'm an entrepreneur myself, but I've worked with obviously a lot of entrepreneurs in my life. And the common thread amongst almost all of them, there may be all of them because not everybody shares everything about themselves, is that they've faced some sort of adversity in their life. And I felt compelled to talk about that because a lot of times when you talk about entrepreneurs, for lack of better words, the one word that comes to mind and is often used is winning, right? They're achievers, they're high achievers, but we don't recognize what they may have went through to be so resilient.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it sounds like there's often hardships that entrepreneurs face that aren't really acknowledged. And instead, the post-traumatic growth and resilience is celebrated. And, oh, look at you, you've gone, you know, you're succeeding, you're able to be a self-starter, you can solve any problem. And maybe there's not enough acknowledgement of what has gone on prior to their success.
Exactly. And for me personally, if I can get personal a little bit, I know that when I was a child, small child to teenager, I had a pretty rough childhood, but a lot of the teachers, not a lot of them, the teachers felt like I'd be okay. And why was that? Because I did well in school. So there's this notion that, well, if you kind of meet these standards of success, that you're well adjusted and mentally healthy. Not necessarily.
Okay, so it felt like you were meeting the metrics, getting good grades, showing up, working hard, but there were things under the surface that weren't being addressed that you would have really benefited from addressing on a more emotional side.
Exactly, because it's very lonely. So even entrepreneurs who may not have suffered or have been exposed to a lot of adversity, to be an entrepreneur, there's a certain air of loneliness, but then add trauma and other events that may have occurred in the entrepreneur's life. Think about how lonely that is and how that plays out.
Absolutely. Yeah. The idea that, you know, someone is just so capable that they don't need to rely on anybody else. And then the people around them just kind of saying, oh yeah, they've got it. Leave them be. And in the article, it does, you mentioned, so in one study, the Aldridge Foundation found 7 in 10 entrepreneurs cite traumatic childhood experiences as a formative event. Absolutely. So thinking about the concept of like resilience and post-traumatic growth, how do you think that fits into the experience of entrepreneurs. I think we've touched on it, but maybe diving a little deeper into how those formative experiences then lead to success and problem solving and all of the things that it takes to be an entrepreneur.
I think by experiencing adversity and succeed, this is how I would define it. Like when you face adversity, and I'll speak from my own personal point of view, when you have nothing left to lose and all you have to gain, that teaches you incredible resilience, right? And you learn incredible risk-taking skills, because if you don't have much, you're not really risking much, right? If you don't have much to risk, maybe this. So if you're in really dire straits, the thing that you could possibly risk, depending on the choice, is your life. That's pretty sizable. But if your quality of life is not too great, you're willing to take the risk to make it better. So you learn incredible resilience strategies. You learn to, I don't like where I'm at, so I'm going to focus on what I want and where I want to go, and nothing is going to stop me, right? All great qualities for an entrepreneur. So that's what dictates, I think, their growth. But what happens is there is a lack of growth with, I will call, interpersonal health, and sometimes with social skills, because you become self-reliant, which is something I discuss in the article as well. So you become, sometimes it can be incredibly difficult to trust others. Now, some folks will find ways to do that. And I was going to talk about Oprah, for example. She was one, and she cites trusting teachers. That was part of her ecosystem to encourage her to where she got. But for others, without trusting others, you will be capped at your growth, even as an entrepreneur.
Okay. So there's a certain extent to which one can be self-reliant and successful, but eventually the interpersonal challenges kind of bubble to the surface and can, I imagine, cause a whole lot of conflict if someone is a leader and hasn't built interpersonal skills. I imagine it can be really hard to manage people and maintain healthy relationships and communication, and cause a lot of internal conflict. Is that true?
I would say absolutely. So I was, one of my goals for today was to talk about superheroes, right? And so for folks who love the superhero movies, every superhero is born out of some sort of adversity, right? And every superhero has amazing superhero power, and they do wonderful things. But what's one of their challenges oftentimes in these movies is working as a team. Eventually they do. You look at the Avengers and they realize one is better than one, meaning the team is better than one. So if we collaborate and we bring all our superhero powers together, we can really change the world, or save the world in that case, right? So they have to, in order for those superheroes to be able to do that, they have to learn how to trust. And how do you learn to trust? Is by feeling valued.
Absolutely. We had the Foundation for Family and Community Healing had a workshop earlier this week with the Better Business Bureau. And one of the topics that we discussed, so the workshop was called Mental Health Resilience and Your Bottom Line, and how without mental health resilience, your bottom line is going to suffer. And with that, we talked about having a strengths-focused approach and how important it is to, I think we all have challenges where there's somebody on our team or in our lives we have to interact with regularly who maybe irks us, and we struggle to see what is valuable about them. But taking a strengths-based approach every morning, very intentionally, and then you can kind of create that dream team that you mentioned of superheroes where every person is bringing something unique to the table, and together you're better. And having that kind of, what you said about feeling valued. I think having someone point out your strengths to you verbally, regularly providing specific examples can be such a meaningful part of feeling valued. And the hard part is, I feel like it has to, usually that kind of culture starts with leadership. And so if there's somebody who doesn't trust and has a lot of wounds, it may feel very vulnerable for them to point out the strengths of others and speak in that sort of kind way if they've maybe never had that modeled and done for and to them by others.
So from my experience with that, leaders can actually, who have had that experience, can sometimes be very good at nurturing others and be passing out the praise and the accolades and saying, well, I value you. The problem is they don't know how to hear it and trust it if they hear it themselves. So that's where burnout comes. At some point, I talk about this a lot too, which is purpose. If you're an entrepreneur doing something for the sake of trying to prove something to the world, your value, that's not really your purpose, and you won't really be able to reach the goals. You're going to burn out from that. So while you may be able to overcome adversity and be resilient, it's important to get to know who you are, and there needs to be the support for the entrepreneur to figure out who they are and really where they want to go.
Right. So I'm curious to know, Tiffany, like what that kind of support looks like, especially when there are often individuals who have been through a lot, they've come out on top, like maybe they're even slightly resistant to accepting support, like you mentioned, resistant to praise or having their strengths pointed out. What does it look like to support an entrepreneur?
So there's a lot of things that are needed to support an entrepreneur. One of the things you can do if you know of an entrepreneur is just to be there for them. Entrepreneurs also have a lot of ideas, big ideas. And the worst thing you could say to an entrepreneur is any version of, that's stupid. I mean, seriously, all you need to do is listen. You know how that can be hard, right? It's hard just to, and listen. That's it. Because sometimes entrepreneurs have a lot of ideas. Sometimes they're just thinking out loud. They just need somebody to be there for them. That's it. So that means listen. Just listen to what they have to say, and don't give unsolicited advice, right? Because that can make them feel like unvalued. And then you can get involved. So to support entrepreneurs, find entrepreneurs that you have similar passions with and try to get involved in the same activities that shows their support, and promote them. We hear about that a lot, right, on social media, especially for our small businesses. Support small businesses. Promote them as much as you can in all the ways you can, as you have word of mouth, social media. Really, you can promote them that way, and that really shows them support. And if you've ever been in an event, any kind, we'll say chamber, networking event, doesn't matter. There's always going to be some entrepreneurs that are off to the side. They don't know where their place is. So what you can do is, like we tell our children who, when they go to school and they see that child sitting at the lunch table by themselves, what do we tell them?
To introduce them to others.
And sit with them and just sit with them. Or invite them to your table. Do that when you see the entrepreneurs out and about. Because some entrepreneurs are really good at do, action. But when they're in an environment like that, they don't know where to put themselves. They feel very, it's scary, right? So welcome them, be by them, introduce them to people, maybe, and you might know people that they actually feel comfortable with. And then just recommend them to your network, give them exposure, because the more support that you can provide them, the better.
Absolutely. Okay. So it sounds like sit with them at events, engage, supporting on social media, sharing. So it sounds like a lot of the ways that we hear we're supposed to support entrepreneurs, but maybe don't follow through on it because life is busy, but taking the time to engage and support in some of those ways that we hear about. And just a reminder to our listeners that this is The Work FM 95.3. This is the show Finding Our Fit, and we are talking about entrepreneurs and empowering diverse entrepreneurs to drive national success and unity. And so if anyone would like to join in on the conversation, feel free to do so. You can call 804-464-1089, and then you can also join in the comments on either Facebook Live or on YouTube. We would love to hear from you. So kind of jumping back to the conversation about hardships, and the article you mentioned a C.S. Lewis quote that says, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." That really reminded me of Joseph Campbell's concept of the hero's journey. So the idea that in life we, begin going on our life's quest and have a series of challenges and mentors and helpers along the way. And eventually we get to kind of a rock bottom moment or the inner cave where things feel impossible and like it's absolutely like there's no solution. There's no way to get out of it. But then as we're in the innermost cave, we realize the gifts that come from those challenges. And in my own experience, that gift is usually empathy and the ability to connect more with other people. And then we leave the cave with those gifts. We're able to spread them with the world, and we kind of grow and fulfill our destiny, as, to go back to that C.S. Lewis quote. So in my experience, when I'm going through something challenging, I often don't recognize the growth that will come later. It's usually a hindsight is 2020 kind of feeling. And at the same time, I have noticed that I've become more resilient in the face of hardship the more that I face hardship. So do you think it can be like building a muscle for entrepreneurs or for anyone?
I think so. And I think what you learn, I'm going to speak from the frame of reference of an entrepreneur who was born out of adversity. You're not as afraid of failure, and you just become hyper vigilant on the goal and where you want to go. So it is like building a muscle, because every time you fall down, it just makes you stronger every time you stand right back up, right? And that's the key, I think, with it for the entrepreneurial mindset is failure exists, but you learn from it and you never accept it. That's the thing. You just never accepted it. That's the end point. So you have faith to some degree that you will achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, because you do not accept failure. And that comes from the feeling of no control from when you were a child. Mm-hmm. So you grab the control as the entrepreneur, go, I'm not going to accept this. And that's what gives you that resilience.
Okay. All right. So each time it becomes slightly less challenging. However, it sounds like even though entrepreneurs become more resilient and able to solve problems and pick themselves up, there's still the impact of that trauma that's not being addressed, which we're talking about, and the ways that we can support entrepreneurs in our communities. And the title has a pretty strong claim that empowering diverse entrepreneurs can drive national success and unity. Can you speak a little bit to the benefits in our communities of supporting entrepreneurs and why it's important for all of us and impacts all of us?
So I think what's really important to note, specifically in the United States, I'm going to shout out some statistics. One, because I love them. Two, it kind of supports the point, which is according to the US SBA, 99.9% of all businesses in the United States are small businesses. So that's a pretty sizable number. But So when we say they're the backbone of the economy, I would easily argue that they're also the superheroes of the economy. So that's one statistic. While 80% of small businesses have no employees, small businesses actually employ 46.4% of all U.S. employees, so almost half. That's significant. So think about when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. If small businesses are already employing almost half, think about what that does to the workforce. Small businesses have added 12.9 million jobs over the last 25 years. And the professional business services industry created over 1.1 million new jobs in 2021. So they have small businesses, while often overlooked, and reasons why sometimes they're overlooked is because we pay attention to the tech and the large corporations. And why do we do that? Because they pay to play. We know their names, right? Small business doesn't have the notoriety, so they don't get the visibility. They don't get the attention. But if we support the entrepreneur, right, and it comprises so much of our economy, it will have a ripple effect across society around the United States culture.
Absolutely. And if entrepreneurs are often individuals who have experienced hardship, might that make them more empathetic leaders and more likely to be engaged in efforts where they're able to give back? And I imagine also there's just in a smaller company, there's more ability to make those kinds of decisions to give back. I feel like for many larger corporations, in order to okay a donation to a local nonprofit, it's months and months of paperwork and that sort of thing. So is that another piece of how communities benefit from entrepreneurs?
Yes, there's a statistic. I don't have it right here and it's going to bug me, but the number of donations given is actually higher from small businesses. It's substantial than corporations. Wow. Most money that supports charities and nonprofits is coming from small businesses. Again, it's just they don't get the notoriety because it's a large group of people, highly fragmented, right? But I know we're not here to talk politics, but I don't want to, but I'm going to bring up that when you see a politician running for office, how many times does that politician say, I was a business owner, my mother, my father, my grandfather, they tie it back. Because if 99.9% of the businesses in the United States are small businesses, it's a relatability factor.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That statistic that you shared that we'll try to find after, just about the majority of charitable giving coming from small businesses is significant. Especially just, thinking about some of the Fortune 500, 150, whatever companies that have so much money, and to know that, I guess by percentage, they're doing a lot less. And it sounds like it is small businesses that are more engaged with their communities, and so they probably care more because they're forced to be a part of them and to interact in order to get business as well.
They're connected to their communities in a much more real, tangible way.
Beautiful. So you're an entrepreneur, and you've started a nonprofit called Empower People that educates and connects leaders to empower the people, organizations, and communities that they serve. Could you share more about how you and the Empower People team do that?
Absolutely. So we believe at Empower People that education should never cease, that you should always be we believe in continuous education. And we believe that for education to really be transformative, you need to not just learn concepts, but change inner practices within yourself to apply those concepts, and then learn how to apply those concepts externally. So what we do is we offer traditional courses that are shorter in length, but give you some knowledge. So that way, unfortunately, people make decisions because they don't know what they don't know. So these courses are designed so you know what you know. So if you still make a decision, shame on you, because you were at least brought aware to it. Now, those courses are not going to make you an expert, but it brings awareness. But then what we have is learning and growth development programs, also known as like our special programs, and that's what I call our secret sauce, because it's a 3-prong approach to education. And that's going back to what I said, which is empower education, which is teaching the concepts, empower self, which is peer group coaching. So you can take the concept and learn how to implement it from within, and then empower others, which is the peer group advising. And that teaches you how to take what you've learned and actually empower others with that information. So that's really how we do it. So what Empower People is, it's really a community. It's a community of entrepreneurs. These entrepreneurs can be coming from for-profits, nonprofits, micro businesses, small businesses, large companies, but they have one thing in common. They have like this entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial drive, and they want to lead, and they are purpose-driven, meaning they want to really empower the people, the organizations, communities they serve, and be positive, purpose-driven change agents. That's what our community is about. So Empower People, we try to foster innovation and creativity. Remember what I said, what do entrepreneurs need? So we foster that. There is no such thing as a crazy idea or idea too big. We say, that's interesting. Maybe, how could we make that happen? We don't talk about things you can't do. I'll tell you that in Empower People. We don't talk about things you can't do. We only talk about what can we do. Let's focus on what can be done, not can't. We nurture entrepreneurial spirit, including mindset of proactivity, risk-taking, and continuous improvement. Goes back to what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? We establish effective ecosystems. And that's going back, think back to my analogy with the Avengers, right? You may be strong as one person, but you're stronger as one, meaning as a team. So we foster that. We help develop that. It's not, for many people, it doesn't come organically. It doesn't come naturally. But for somebody who was not raised in a family or strong family unit or ecosystem, there may be more challenge. So by really digging in and how to foster that ecosystem, promote an entrepreneurial mindset by offering continuous learning and growth opportunities. So it could be through our learning and growth development programs, our courses, our events, our open office advisor hours that we do, which is our power hours, and we build collaboration and support. So everything we do is really trying to provide that connection so people do not feel siloed. We try to help them grow that.
Okay. So it's a community of entrepreneurs. I love the idea that first you empower yourself in a particular skill, and then it shifts over to empowering others, because teaching something that you don't really know how to do sounds impossible. Although I've seen people attempt to many a time. And the concept of fostering innovation and creativity and having a what can we do mentality versus a mentality of that's a little too big. We're gonna scratch that and start with something new, or edit it, or whatever it may be, even if maybe the edits are the outcome. Having a conversation first of curiosity and support so that those edits happen naturally and in a way that is affirming rather than taking the wind out of someone's sails, because it sounds like a lot of entrepreneurs have already had the wind taken out of their sails a few too many times. And so providing a space where that doesn't happen sounds really beautiful. I have a couple more questions about the offerings that you all have, but want to just remind our listeners that this is The Work FM. And this is the show Finding Our Fit. I'm here with Tiffany Greene. My name is Ali Fisher. I'm with the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, and we are discussing empowering diverse entrepreneurs, driving national success and unity. And if you'd like to join in on the conversation, you can do so by calling 804-464-1089 or jumping in the chat on either Facebook live or on YouTube. So Tiffany, you mentioned the special programs that you have, really like dig in and get to the root of issues that may be arising, or are really about learning skills that take time to develop. What are some examples of what that digging in might look like?
Well, through one of our programs called Empower Forum. Empower Forum is a program that teaches consultants how to be the best consultants they can be, as well as how to work within an ecosystem of consultants. So a lot of times, consultants too are entrepreneurial. And when the program begins, there's a certain there's a certain wall that comes up. I know that. And conceptually, they may know it. And it takes, through peer group coaching and the peer group advising, it takes months to be able to go, I conceptually knew that, but my actions are not, I'm not actually practicing that. And so I think through educational programs, any courses are great. Obviously, we offer some. But if you're really trying to change, it takes more than just learning something. It takes coaching, it takes advising, and practice. And that's what I think makes our special programs special. Because how many times have you sat in an educational format and you're like blown away by what you learned, and you have every goal in mind to leave there and go, I'm good. I can't wait to go and practice this. And then what happens? You don't.
Right. You never do. You get busy, you lose the notes.
Well, it's hard to change habits, right? You go back to what you know. It's easy. You fall back in. Life gets in the way. So one thing Empower People's never going to say is, oh, we got a quick, fast track, quick, dirty learn. You're going to get it done today. No, we don't, because that's not going to happen. That's not real. But what we are transformative. But the reality is, you got to put the work in. It's just like I love the analogy you were saying earlier about a muscle, right? If you want to do I'm going to talk about something I'm not too familiar with, so I apologize to those people who are. But body weight training, and you want to do like a bodybuilder competition, you can't just like say, I'm going to go sign up tomorrow. Good luck. Especially if I did that. Good luck. I'd be like the weakest one there. It takes months. I actually had a friend who actually went through that, and it took a long time. It took her at least, I think, a year before she could start competing. So why would we have a different expectation for anything else? I tell my kids all the time, this is a muscle. It's a brain muscle. You have to work it. You have to practice it to grow it.
Oh yeah.
And it's true.
Absolutely. One quote that I heard is like, the best workout is the one you actually do. And and kind of along those lines, not only is it about the behavior change, and this is why we get along, Tiffany, because the Foundation for Family and Community Healing is a very similar framework of believing that it's not just knowledge acquisition. It's not just sitting through that seminar, taking the notes, believing in it, knowing it works, knowing that if you were to actually do what you say you're going to do, it would be a positive outcome, but it's feeling empowered to actually make those changes, and then to do them incrementally, to figure out how to reward yourself as you go, and to have the discipline. And it's not just the passion that you might have immediately after learning new information. And I joke all the time, with I'm working on figuring out a perfect morning routine for myself, which sometimes I laugh, like, I don't think the perfect morning routine exists. But if I were to go online and read everything that people tell me is supposed to be part of my morning routine, it would be 3 hours long, and it would involve, an ice bath, and then a hot shower, and then a steam room, and then a 30-minute meditation, a walk, a workout. Like it would just be insane. And so, yes, this idea that these special programs that you have walked through, like, okay, how are you implementing it this week? And how about this week? And how about this week? And then it's that gradual change over time. I think that's really, really powerful. And then also having the open office hours. So it sounds like the open office hours are for anyone within the Empower People community to go and ask questions on whatever topics they're dealing with at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Empower People members can ask any kind of business, leadership, management questions to our advisors that are there for open office advisor hours. So we've only had 2 sessions so far, but we've had 4 advisors at each. So we get different experts. So we've had HR, lawyer, operations, business transformation, and strategy so far. Those are the types of advisors we've had. So think about all the questions I mean, it's covering a lot, right? So, and it's part of membership, it's free. So like, why not? And I also say, like, you want to bounce an idea off, because remember, entrepreneurs love ideas. You want to just shout out an idea, get some feedback, maybe think of new ways to approach it. Again, because we focus on what we can do, nobody's ever going to say that's a crummy idea. It's going to be like, okay, let's think about that. What can we do? That's a great place to do that. It's a safe place to do that, because when you're an Empower People member, when you sign that membership agreement, the saying is everything you say at Empower People stays at Empower People, and you agree to that when you sign the membership agreement.
Right. So it sounds like it's a beautiful place where people who may not often feel comfortable asking for advice or bouncing ideas off of other people have a space where that's the norm. And I'm just imagining the amount of aha moments and discoveries. Like, I know for me, sometimes there's more value in moments when someone asks me a question and I support them in solving it. It actually helps me more than the other person, because it forces me to think about something in a way that maybe I hadn't, or it gives me an idea for something that I would want to do. So I think that's a really beautiful thing that you all offer to the Empower People community.
Oh yeah, when I was a student back in the day, and I tutored, I did a lot of tutoring. People say, how do you find so much time to tutor? Don't you have to study yourself? I'm like, tutoring gives me the practice to study. I learned better, right? Made me solid in what I needed to know. I loved it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I felt the same way. Sometimes that people would ask me for help with economics homework, and I was always like, yeah, then I'll ace the test without studying. Sounds great. Awesome. So I mean, we've talked a lot about how Empower People is a community of entrepreneurs. So of course, the work that you're doing is supporting entrepreneurs, but could you talk a little bit more about that, and maybe even some successes that you've seen, and also maybe just share, because I know you mentioned that you all have only had 2 of the office hours thus far. So maybe just share how new you are, and it's pretty amazing all that you've done in such a short period of time, being only a few months old now.
Sure. We got our 501c3 back in, I can't remember now, I should remember, March or April. So not that long ago. I know. And that was amazing. And so what we've done is we've partnered with the Chesterfield Chamber, and we've offering Empower People memberships to the Chesterfield Chamber members. In an agreement with the Chesterfield Chamber, it's everybody who has like a connected membership or more. So we have created what we call the Chesterfield Chamber Academy. They get access to all the courses. So if somebody can't attend a course, they're all recorded. They're put in the library. They can access them at any time. Heck, if they actually attended the course and they want to rewatch it because you're like, there was that thing and I got it, they can watch it. It's in the library. And it's for the Empower People members only. So we launched that July 1st. So as soon as we launched that, we had a ribbon cutting June 22nd. We had our first 2 courses during our ribbon cutting. One with Dr. Kenneth Moss from Bryan and Strand College, and he taught about go-to-market planning. And we had Dan Tyre from HubSpot, who gave another course on the best go-to-market planning for 2023. And then starting in July, we started our schedule. So every first and third Thursday, we offer a course. The first Friday of every month, we offer our open office advisor hours. And we actually have one of our special programs, which is our business growth planning boot camp. Our first course of that is actually on August 30th. And that first course out of that 4-part series is success planning and the fundamental there's a lot in it, but in essence, it's about how to defining what you want to get out of your business so your business doesn't run you. So learning how to run your business so your business doesn't run you, because that's a really easy trap to fall into. So that's what success planning is about. And then we're getting prepared to offer a strategic planning workshop, which is also a special program. And then we have about 6 already special programs. So and again, all those programs have the education, peer group coaching, and peer group advising. So we have lots of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And, I know that Empower People and the Foundation for Family and Community Healing are looking into collaborating on a special program coming in 2024. So I hope folks stay tuned for that. We're really excited to work together. And for those who maybe are tuning in and have tuned in before, you know what the foundation's all about. And so you probably can tell that we have very shared values here with Tiffany and the folks over at Empower People. So thinking about what someone can do to support entrepreneurs now. So like one thing that we like to do with this show is to make things pretty practical. If I had 10 minutes to go and try to support an entrepreneur, is the best thing to go and like and share something on social media of a small business owner nearby, or what could I do to get that journey started?
The easiest thing you could do is somebody that you know is an entrepreneurial, has that entrepreneurial mindset, is ask them this question. What's the thing keeping you up at night? And then listen. Don't try to solve it. Just be empathetic. Because what happens, again, with an entrepreneur is everybody tends to focus on their success. And so entrepreneurs are asked, forced, donation, money, connection. They're being asked to give, and they do like to give. But what they would really like is the support of, tell me what's keeping you up at night, and just listen. Don't try to sell them something once you find out what their pain point is, but literally just listen and be there for them, and don't cut them off. It might be hard to listen, but that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that advice. And I was talking to someone recently who said that they don't know a single small business CEO who doesn't feel like they're in crisis right now. With the way that the business environment is post-COVID, with the quiet quitting epidemic, with, lack of work-life balance, just that there are so many challenges in the world of running your own small business right now. And then not to mention just the state of the world right now with, the heat and climate crisis and political division and everything else kind of all impacting people's ability to show up and be present. Have you been finding that too in the folks that you've worked with, just that people are kind of at their wits' end?
No, honestly,
No.
I think entrepreneurs are typically used to crisis. They thrive in crisis. Some entrepreneurs will actually create a crisis if there isn't one, because that is their norm. So I would not say that, there's always a level of worry. People are worried about the recession, what the upcoming elections are going to do, because with that, even outside of politics, it impacts every election impacts the economy. So there's a lot of what's going to happen. But, all of this is very cyclical, and this has happened. And if you've been around long enough, hey, this is par for the course. So some of what we have to do as human beings, I think, and entrepreneurs, is when we're fed all like doomsday. This is like the worst it's ever been. No. Be informed, but don't fall victim to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for some, it can be hard not to. Like I am definitely guilty of being somebody who can be impacted by headlines. Like I went into crisis reading an article about the water temperature in the Florida Keys hitting 100 degrees and the reefs were dying. And it's hard for me sometimes to get out of that space and then realize what's in my own sphere of influence. But it sounds like in your experience and as entrepreneurs are very comfortable operating within their own sphere of influence, they kind of know what they can control, what crises they need to respond to, whereas what crises are just kind of happening out there and there's not a whole lot they can actively do.
It's the hyper focus again. It's like that hyper focus. This is what I'm trying to achieve. But I think also it's like what you said too. It's like it's important to be aware of what's going on in the world around us. But where you get the feeling of power back is saying, what can I do in my own little world to make a positive impact? And I think that's where, now this is where you guys are the experts, not me, but I'm going to say, and you can correct me if you're like, wow, she's wrong. This is where I think people, when you focus on all the headlines and then don't say, well, what can we do about it? We have to have that follow-up question, because without it makes us all feel horrible, makes us all feel like out of control. And when we feel that way, what happens? Right?
Right. We paralysis.
So it's going back to what can we do? Now, we're not going to change. One person isn't going to change the entire world, but that one person's can change their world. And when they change their world, it changes other. And then before you know it, that's how you have to, I think, and I think most entrepreneurs understand that because of the life they've lived. That doesn't mean there's not there's always exceptions to every rule. But I think that is one thing I see with a lot of entrepreneurs is they understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a powerful lesson. It's interesting. I wonder if the person that I was speaking to, I mean, they're in a different organization. And then I wonder if the people who gravitate towards empower people and just the name, it's so positive. We're superheroes. We're here to make the world a better place. So I wonder if the people that gravitate towards you naturally are going to be people who aren't in crisis because they have that outlook. They're seeking the support and they're taking that step. And maybe it's about, maybe I need to talk to this person and say, hey, there's a solution out there.
Well, I think if they could be in crisis. I think it's wherever they are in their own journey with crisis. It's that outlook. If you're I would say for entrepreneur, if you are in crisis and are not equipped or getting the support you need to deal with that crisis, your business will suffer. And I learned something. It was something that I actually learned a long time ago, but I didn't really fully get it till a few years ago. And I'm only speaking in context of business right now. So not necessarily my personal life, but business. If a business is drowning and you're reaching out to save it, to stop from drowning, you know what they do? They push you away. And that's what happens if you've ever been a lifeguard. When somebody's actively drowning, right? They push away. And that's what happens a lot of times when a business is in the throes of drowning. So they're probably, if they're literally in that kind of mode of crisis, we would welcome them, but they may be focused on that crisis at hand. You're right. They may not turn to empower people because they don't have the ability to hear about what they can do. They're focused on what they can't do.
Right. And I imagine I can't remember the name of the logical fallacy here, but it's the idea that things that happen are caused by us rather than just the environment that we're in or something unrelated. So believing that we are contributing more to our own successes or failures than the environment that we're in and random events. So like, for example, if a business is sinking and the business owner feels like they're drowning and it's a crisis, it might be this feeling of like, this is my fault. I caused this. My employees are suffering as a result. I didn't do things the right way, when maybe it's just the business environment. Maybe, you know, the supply chain, whatever, that they were working with is completely, you know, outside of their control, and there's nothing they could do. But that personal responsibility that we tend to take on in those moments.
Well, and I think for an entrepreneur, that's true. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's where that resiliency steps in, because even if all the external factors are at play, like you said, but you also there's that accountability factor of what was my contribution to this sinking ship, right? The key is to be resilient and not let let's say your business drowns, but it doesn't drown you. You pick yourself up. If you look at the most famous of entrepreneurs, most of them have had failed businesses. They kept on going. That's the thing. Now, I'm not saying no, but these people probably didn't. They all probably had a little pity party. I don't know how, but they didn't stay there, right? And that's the key. It's about, okay, you learn, and not to realize we're all human, and to give yourself the grace, like, I made a mistake. I did the best I could, but man, I made a mistake. I'm going to learn from that so I don't repeat that mistake again. That's all you can expect from yourself.
Right. Gosh, it's so hard when other people's livelihoods are at stake. However, you know, if entrepreneurs weren't providing jobs for others in the first place, apparently 46.7%?
46.4. Yeah.
46.4% of people in our country who are employed wouldn't be. So, yeah, that there's multiple ways to look at something, and that, yeah, I think for many human nature is to put too much pressure on ourselves and not recognize the good being contributed.
And just from now, this isn't going to be backed by statistics. This is going to just be backed by my experience, which is small business owners who've had a business that they've had to close. Most of the ones that I've had experience with make sure that their employees have found employment before they have to shutter their business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
I've seen that happen. And even a family member worked for a company that ended up going under, and the employees also rallied together and looked over each other's resumes and provided referrals and support. And yeah, just that it's usually not just a complete one overnight thing, and that there's a warning and there's time to, although it can be, and that there's time to think of other alternatives for everybody involved.
Well, and I think for an entrepreneur, when they, for a small business, I think the lesson learned, as we talked about before, which is like, you got the one versus the one when we're talking about the superheroes, right? So if you are experiencing challenges in your business, whether they're small challenges to dire challenges, you have a team. If you operate with the team mentality and not let your ego get in the way, like, I'm the only one responsible for everything. You go into anything that way. Your employees, your team may have incredible ideas, better ideas than you. You have to be willing to accept that, first of all. But those ideas may be the ideas that save the business.
Right. Absolutely. Ask around and listen to each other. So we're almost at the end of our time here today. I wanted to ask if there's anything else that you would like to say as a final message to folks who are listening.
Well, the one thing I really wanted to say that we didn't have enough time to talk about was just, small businesses are not just important to the economy, but they're important to people of color in this country. And if we look at the statistics, I'm just going to bring up this one and final statistic. According to Babson College's annual Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, which studies entrepreneurship over the last 5 years, finds higher rates of entrepreneurship among Black Americans. On average, from 2014 to 2018, about 20% of the Black population in the U.S. started businesses, compared to roughly only 12% of the white population and nearly 13% of the Latino population. So if you're thinking that entrepreneurship, small business is not a consideration when we talk about DEI and social issues, that's not true.
Yeah, thank you so much for that point, Tiffany. It's incredibly important. And I wish we had another hour to dig deep into that. So maybe we'll have to do it again.
That's
I
always
see
true.
Ron.
There's always more to say. Well, that's good. We'll have to have you back, Tiffany.
Sounds good. I always have a lot to say. Fair warning.
Useful things to say too. We're useful over here at the Work FM. We find useful things to talk about. We don't just bat our guns, as they used to say. That's an old Midwest expression. Sorry. Anyway, well, hey, I didn't mean to crash your party so abruptly, but it is about time to wind down. We have another show coming up at 6, so don't go away, listeners. We have a show coming up, and I will introduce it in a moment because Roger has to set up StreamYard for it. But thank you very much, Allie. Thank you very much, Tiffany. I really love your stuff. This is how we will gradually, one piece at a time, find our fit and tell others about it and practice and look like we're having more fun living than most people are because we kind of get it. There's a bigger game. It's not about us. You got 95 years, find something to do that's useful. For gosh sakes, this is not rocket science. It's life. And it's kind of fun. We sell normal here. It's boring, old fashioned, but it works. Forget all this fancy, hair on fire stuff. No. That's so last year. So last year. Anyway.
Thank you so much
for being with us. And I ran us over myself. You can blame me for that. Anyway. Well,
thank you, Ron.
All right.
Thank you.
So bye-bye, listeners, viewers, and on to our next show.